Control the language, shape the mind. Dictate the culture, keep the masses blind. The party's hand, it moves unseen, altering words, reshaping the scene. They twist the truth, they bend the light, crafting their narrative out of sight. Every term they redefine to serve their purpose, to toe their line. Everything means capitalism. In their parallel tongue, it's their prism, whispered in socialist code. The truth obscured, the meanings erode. From bourgeoisie to equities, in their language weaves a twisted game. Each word a tool, each phrase a ploy to quote the truth in their employ. Bourgeoisie oppressors they claim, equity's their utopia's name. Whiteness, racism, systemic fly, all roads lead back to their abolition fight. Fascism dubbed as free market stream, abolishing individual liberties, their scheme. Normativity, patriarchy's grip, all intertwined, their narrative flip. Everything means capitalism. In their parallel tongue, it's their prism, whispered in socialist code. The truth obscured, the meanings erode. From bourgeoisie to equities, in their language weaves a twisted game. Each word a tool, each phrase a ploy to quote the truth in their employ. Queer and trans, they declare the war on capitalism's norm they're restore. Gender binary, the nuclear family's whole. Their destruction is the goal. Imperialism, colonization's reign. Decolonization to break the chain. The police, enforcers, they're named. Guardians of capital, their claim. Their language shapes, their rhetoric binds, to break the cycle, to free our minds. For in their words, their hidden game, capitalism's grip, they aim to tame. Everything means capitalism. In their parallel tongue, it's their prism, whispered in socialist code. The truth obscured, the meanings erode. From bourgeoisie to equities, in their language weaves a twisted game. Each word a tool, each phrase a ploy to quote the truth in their employ. Control the language, control the crowd, but in our hearts the truth is loud. Their words may twist, their meanings bend, but in the end our voices ascend.
Hello, fellow Gnostic sex cultists. Happy Tuesday. I don't know why my camera's frozen. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. It's working now. Hey, guys, we got a really special episode today, so I'm going to do just a quick bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to get right into it. As a reminder, I do not know if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow because I will be traveling out to the bustling metropolis that is Detroit for AFPAC, and so whether or not I stream tomorrow really does depend on how the hotel Wi-Fi situation is. I will not be streaming on Saturday because I will actually be at the event, and I will be back for sure on Monday. And so that'll be just great. So just quick programming note there. Sadly, Socialism Saturday is going to get postponed for this week, but that's okay because that will give you guys time to catch up on my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. I promise, the third part of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto podcast is going to go up tonight if it kills me, even though I have a 6 a.m. flight, it is going to go up 2 nights. So if you haven't caught the first 2 parts of the Gender Accelerationist podcast, you need to listen to this. This is the thing that is driving gender ideology on the activist grassroots level. All the things we're hearing when we're doing deep dives into far left trainings are echoing the language from this document. So you guys need to listen to it, and you need to know where these ideas are coming from, because we're the only ones talking about this. No one else has this. Of course, I do also have a couple spy streams that I did last week that you can catch up on. Both of those are queer and trans trainings targeting LGBTQ youth. One of them was taxpayer funded in the state of Massachusetts. And so you can catch up on that and much, much more over on my Substack. If you want to support the work I'm doing, you can sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. You guys keep me in business. I am completely grassroots funded thanks to you. And of course, you can also head over to my How to Speak Socialist Substack, where I am currently writing my next book, but I'm doing it via Substack. So you can follow along with my drafts in real time. We've got a new article up called Individualism is Dead, all about how you take a society focused on individualism and meritocracy and move it so that the general population, without even understands what's going on, moves towards collectivism, which I hope our guest today will agree with me that that's a really bad idea, and we should probably do something about that. You can find out more information at speaksocialist.substack.com. And one last way to support the work I'm doing is to head over to the Unwoke Art Store and pick up some sweet, sweet merch. We do, of course, have a couple limited editions right now. Now, I may not be voting for Trump, because I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for our guest here today, as well as his running mate or the presidential candidate. But I do want to, I have no problem making money off of Trump, because I'm a capitalist and I think Trump is funny, if nothing else. So you can pick up the sweet Trump American Gangster design for another 3 days only. This design is leaving the store on Sunday. You can get it in black. You can get it in orange. You can even get it in lighter colors, because people requested lighter colors. So fine. And of course, you can get the golden Trump mug, the classic, the iconic, the only place you can get the golden Trump mug on the internet, my store. There you go. That'll be leaving the store on Sunday. And while you're there, you can pick up something like the Real Marxism design, which is one of the iconic designs out of my store, and is going to be the topic of what we're going to be focusing on today. Trust me, if you walk through Whole Foods wearing this shirt, you're going to get some great looks. They love it. They see Marxism, they get all excited, and then they come up close to you and they realize Marx is standing on a mountain of skulls. They don't like that so much. So it's kind of fun. So those are some ways you can support the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. But we're not going to go too much into that now, because I'm going to bring on my very special guest. We have him until 6:00 tonight, and we are going to be able to have a nice discussion with him. I would like it to be about parental rights. We can maybe talk about some other stuff too, but he is the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party, Dr. Mike Termott. Mike, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my goodness, thank you. It's a great joy to be with you, Carlin. And I would encourage all of your viewers to support all of the efforts you're making. That all sounds absolutely terrific, with a possible exception, of course, of that 6 a.m. flight. Whose idea was that? Was that one of your listeners?
Oh my God. No, yo, I wanted to fly out of Manchester, New Hampshire. It was the only flight that was going to get me in at a reasonable hour. And it's sometimes you just have, you're going to be traveling all around. Sometimes, you just got to suck it up and get up early.
I think you
and
must have been naughty in a previous life or something. At 6 a.m. You better go now.
I know, right? I'm not even packed yet. That's what I'm doing right after this. But you know what? It'll all work out. I'll get a nap once I get to Detroit, so it's all good. So
well, I've got a noon flight tomorrow, so when I get up leisurely and drive myself to the airport, I'll think about you already landing.
Hey, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Well, I want to start off with, first of all, congratulations. You and Chase Oliver pulled it off. I gotta say that, I was supporting Rechtenwald, but if I'm honest about it, I wasn't actually upset at the outcome. And so how does it feel to be the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party?
Well, first of all, let me say good for you. I'm a Michael Rechtenwald fan myself, and he would be a great guest on your show.
Yeah, he's been on before. Yep.
Okay, well good. Mm-hmm. Then you're a step ahead of me. There is no one as unwoke as Michael Rechtenwald, and I would recommend his book On Such, and aptly named, to your audience. It's terrific stuff. I actually bought a copy thinking that because he and I were competitors, I would find something in there to make fun of him with, and ended up reading the whole damn thing in an airplane thinking, this is good stuff. I don't want to make fun of this. This is the bomb. So I have interviewed Michael myself, and on a recorded video and found it wholly enlightening. So enough about him. You were asking about the campaign. It's terrific, and it's a great pleasure to be joining Chase. Chase Oliver is a great guy. I've gotten to know him better over the last few weeks than I had before, as you might imagine, and I'm just as pleased as can be to be working with him personally as well as his team. So it's all good. I think we make a good team in the sense that we have a lot of philosophy in common and a lot of demography differentiated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Chase is great, to be honest, and people might be surprised to hear me say that because I don't agree with him on everything, but where I really came to start respecting Chase was I saw what he did in Georgia in 2022, and I thought that was an incredible campaign he ran, and I've kind of been paying attention to him running all over the country over the past 2 years to get this nomination. There's no one that campaigned harder than Chase Oliver, and so there, like that was one of the reasons I was like, this is actually not that bad of a thing, because if anything, I know that Chase Oliver is not going to stop up until the election. He's going to be out there every day. He is an amazing messenger. And quite frankly, I think he can reach a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, which I think is what we should be doing.
I agree. And a lot of youngsters too. I saw him corral a couple of dozen kids that had just gotten off a bus at the Lincoln Memorial. And man, oh man, he delivered them a lecture and they just stood there in rapt attention. I'm telling you, at their age, if some guy had offered me a lecture on libertarianism, I would have told him to go pound sand, right? But they were completely into it. His skills, especially with young people, but his skills on the stump, off the cuff, in public are absolutely unmatched. It was such a masterful display of politicking that when we got back to the office, I told everyone in our team that I had done it.
There you go. Take credit for it. Why not? Why not? I love it. Well, actually, this is a perfect segue into what I would like to spend some of our time on today, because I want to focus in on the issue of parental rights, and because I think, and I think many members of my audience think, that this is one of the pivotal issues that is going to be facing us. And I know you might disagree with me on that, but that's okay. We can disagree and still probably. I think can we agree on the fact that the state should not be in charge of raising children?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We should be in agreement there.
Excellent.
Oh my goodness. Of all the people that I can think of, if I were to list everybody I know that I think should be raising my kids, right? And to be fair, my kids are 31 and 30, so that ship has sailed, but the government wouldn't make it on the list. They might be at the top of the list of people who I don't want involved with raising my kids.
Yeah, and I totally agree. So we can start there, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why I think this is such an important issue, and I want to kind of get your feedback and reaction to some of the stuff that we found, because my audience and community, we basically spend like 6 days a week doing deep dives into the radical revolutionary far left and looking at some of the most dystopian things that are going on in the country. We watch their trainings from start to finish. I go undercover at their events. I secretly record them. We do all this stuff. And so what we see are what we tend to interact with are the people who are pushing gender ideology into schools, the people who are pushing critical race theory into schools, the people who are making active attacks on parental rights. And can I just show you a couple clips of some of the people that we've encountered? Can we do that real quick?
Absolutely. And I should hasten to add, to the extent you had mentioned, maybe we're going to disagree. I'm not sure of that. But to the extent to which we disagree that parental rights is a key issue, it's only because I might say, look, I really think the economy and immigration and war and peace are top issues. I would never suggest that just because I think those are important, that parental rights are not. So I just want to clarify about that. Totally.
And I know you think they're important. I guess the reason that I think they're going to be a key issue is I'm more so looking at a long game here, where I have been tracking over the past 3 years attacks that are going on about parental rights all over the country that I think are being, quite frankly, really underreported on. This is something that is now affecting over 10 million school children all across the country. And I know that Chase's platform is about defunding the Department of Education, and I'm completely on board with that because the public schools are the number one thing that they use to kind of enact these things. But there are policies in public school districts all over the country that are actively taking away parental rights and allowing schools to do things like socially transitioning children to using new names and new pronouns without parents even being aware of what's going on. And I personally think that's a very big problem. And I think that that leads to some of the more severe issues. And by the way, I don't actually have a problem with kids kind of playing with gender and playing with their, how they dress and things like that. I very much agree. And I think that Chase's position on this, correct me if I'm wrong, is like, I think he kind of comes to this with the perspective of he was a young gay boy. And he knows what it's like to be a young gay boy, and he wants kids to be able to be who they are and be loved and be accepted and valued and all of those things. I have no problem with that. I think that some of the things going on in the schools are leading to the things like the gender transition surgery before people are 18, like putting more kids than I think are necessary on puberty blockers and medications like that. And so this is kind of why I'm trying to go to the root cause of where these ideas are coming from is what I'm saying.
Well, you
sense?
and I see this in very similar ways. You and I are absolutely on the same page. And where I come down is, I don't like it when my kids, were taught math in a different way than I want them to be taught, right? I need to know everything going on in that school, which is why I was one of those parents that changed schools once in a while. We were in a public school, then we were in a Catholic school, we were in a Baptist school. You get where I'm going, right? Because I demanded a great deal of control. I was one of those obnoxious parents that thought he knew everything. And of course, as you know, and my wife will tell you, that's certainly wrong. But it's a parent's right. To your point, it's a parent's right to at least think that he knows everything and to exert some control over the education that their kids get.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me show you just a couple things that we've uncovered to kind of set the stage here for this conversation. I want to take you through a couple things. Let me just share my screen here. So for example, we are seeing articles like this one in publications all over the country talking about children not being property, the idea underlying, they're calling it the right-wing campaign for parental rights, but essentially articles like this are popping up in major publications, New York Times, Washington Post, et cetera, basically advocating for the abolition of parental rights. And they're all popping up around the same time, which makes it seem like a concerted effort for me. We're seeing things like this is a symposium that took place at the University of Connecticut Law School last year, which was a day-long symposium about the best legal minds in the country coming together to talk about basically how to abolish parental rights. Are parental rights in the best interest of the children? So this is something that they're actively working through. One of the undercover investigations I did last year was I went inside the National Sex Ed Conference in Atlantic City last December, and there I recorded like a half-hour clip, and I won't make you listen to the whole thing now, but this is a half-hour clip of sex educators teaching other sex educators that parents have no rights to decide what their kids are learning in sex ed in public school. Again, this was platformed at the National Sex Ed Conference, and they tried everything they could to prevent me from recording this, but they, of course, failed. So I have stuff like that. I also have stuff like this.
I'm shocked by that, Carl. I'm absolutely shocked that you would succeed in the face of leftist attempts to suppress you. I am shocked.
Every time they try so hard, but they never quite succeed. I want to play you this clip from this is a clip from the Denver Communists. Now, the Denver Communists are a very active communist group, obviously out in Denver, but they actually have national ties to something called the Firebrand Collective, which is a national organization that's coordinating these far left groups nationally. The reason I want to play this for you is I want you to hear them talking about how they perceive parental rights to be a form of private property that they want to see abolished. Is that cool?
Yeah, go for let's go to the videotape, as they used to say in my day.
Let's listen.
To get the politics straight. So to understand the transition period, we must first of all understand what the goal is. So just briefly, Karl Marx was a revolutionary. His goal was the replacement of capitalism by communism, not the superficial modification of capitalism. His critique of capitalism was extremely radical, covering gender and sexual relations, the relations of people to the environment, the overcoming of all forms of oppression, the radical democratization of all social relations, the abolition of all states, the elimination of private productive property, and private ownership of children. He foresaw an international system.
Elimination of the private ownership of children. That's how the left talks about parental rights. And we see this all the time where they talk about that. That's what we're seeing in those newspaper articles. And so one of the reasons I wanted to play that is that it's not just a bunch of newspaper articles. This is actually coming from somewhere, because these groups that are the ones, again, advancing these ideas consider children to be the quote unquote private property of their parents. And I just want to play
there's
one.
a lot to...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm so upset I want to jump in, but you go. Keep going.
I'll just do one more clip really quickly. And this is actually from our favorite, well, we might have two more clips, but this is from our favorite Abolish the Family Socialist. Have you heard about the Abolish the Family movement?
Obliquely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that it was called that quite so starkly, but I am painfully aware that there are people in our culture who want to undermine the power of the family. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is a real thing. And this is one of the key Abolish the Family activists that we've been tracking for a while. Her name is Sophie Lewis. She works at the University of Pennsylvania. She teaches classes in Brooklyn, New York. She tours all over the country advocating for abolishing the nuclear family, abolishing parental rights. And I just want you to hear what she said. This was actually back in February of this year. And she's actually on a European tour in this one, but she is based out of the United States. And this is a quick one.
Yes, it's true. What the far right says, feminism wants to abolish the family. To hell with family values, and all capitalist value for that matter. And fuck parents' rights. My hunch is that just beyond the horizon, beckoning to those of us who want to hear it, there is a world of relationship no longer strangled by scarcity and no longer held hostage by economics.
So how do you feel about the idea of fuck parental rights coming from someone who works at the University of Pennsylvania?
Put 60 seconds on the clock. There's so much to unpack there. First of all, let's start with our Marxist friend a moment ago. Yeah. Marxists frequently characterize Marx, I believe, wholly incorrectly. Mm-hmm. As anyone who has read Marx, and I don't necessarily advocate it because he was a horrendously crappy writer. Yeah. So it is a plow, even in the well translated English versions. It is quite a plow. But Marx really was in the business of describing the way that he believed the world would evolve. Modern, what we call Marxists, what people call themselves when they call themselves Marxists, is a bit dishonest. They position themselves as advocating for what it is that Marx advocated for. But Marx was less of an advocate than these folks are. He was predicting the world, and I believe, no way to know this, but if he were a scientist worth his salt, as I believe that he was not, he would be compelled to admit all these decades later that he was wrong, that that's not the way the world evolved, and that he would have to change his opinions, notwithstanding the fact that his so-called followers, for strange reasons, have not, and continue to advocate for things that he merely predicted and got wrong. Having said that, it's important, I think, for your audience is well educated. They don't probably need this lecture, but as long as you piss me off, let me vent. It's important for us to understand that when these people say fuck parental rights, right? Loosening what binds children to their families and fuck family values. What they're really talking about is collectivizing not only the responsibility for raising the children, but for calling the shots. And in many cases, that's actually more important than the responsibility. They'll leave the responsibility to the parents to actually execute on it. They just want control over how it's done. That is a problem on any number of levels. anthropologically speaking, the family unit is what made us as successful a species as we have been. Now, we can argue round or square whether we are a successful species. That's a different episode, right? But to the extent to which we have a future as a species, I am a firm believer that it is the family unit that is going to propel us into the future. And unlike Marx, I make no prediction. It is conceivable. And for those of us who don't like this, let's, put on your armor and let's do battle. It is conceivable that the family unit will fail, and therefore our species will run off the rails. I worry about that very much over the next couple of 100 years. But to the extent to which we are successful, it will be in no small part because of the family unit. I make no pretense to suggesting that's a matter of ethics. That's just a matter of history and the way that the world works. I'm an economist. I don't pass judgment on how people behave or what it is that they want. But if you want our species to be successful, I can tell you, you better start being a proponent of the family unit.
I agree with everything you just said. And now we're zoning in on why I think the attacks on parental rights are a really big issue that I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking, because I don't think the family is going to die out in a couple 100 years. I think they're trying to push it much quicker than that based on the acceleration.
They would like it done by Saturday when you get off that 6 a.m. flight.
And they're really trying too. And so I think that this is a big problem, because I agree with you. The family unit is the thing that is upholding everything. And if the family unit falls, then we might as well just go right off and accept to enjoy our socialism as we descend into lunacy and leftism and like the downfall of our society so far. As
it is the last bastion. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And so I want to play you just one more clip, because this is a clip that kind of gets to what you just said. This is a clip. So I went undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference in Chicago last year. And
I hope the bagels were good.
Yo, it was.
I hope at least the food was good, or the snacks, or the coffee. You put yourself through the ringer.
I had to dress up as a non-binary person. I had to wear a disguise. I was actually preemptively banned from the conference because they knew I was thinking about doing it. So I had to do a fake name and all this stuff. But this is a woman named Mary. Mary is an assistant professor at DePaul University. And I just want to play you a quick clip of what Mary has to say about destroying the nuclear family.
But some of their fears may be legitimate, because destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great.
So that's what we're talking about. They're using, what they're trying to do is, what we talk a lot about on my channel is like the difference between trans and queer, where trans people, the ones that are transitioning from being a man to a woman or woman to a man, they're just trying to live a normal life, and they're just trying to be happy, and they're doing whatever they want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's their body and they should be able to do what they want. But when we're talking about the idea of queer, how the far left is using it is not in terms of gay people or trans people or any of those things. They're using it to try to insert these ideas about the abolition of gender entirely, and that leads to the abolition of the nuclear family, which is why these are the issues that I'm most concerned about. And one of the things they are attacking deliberately to do that is the idea of parental rights. And they say it openly. Like all the clips I played for you today, I have hundreds more clips just like that. And so this is why I'm very concerned. How do you feel about kind of like what I've just walked you through quickly in 20 minutes?
Yeah, I get it. I share your concern.
Yeah.
As an empirical matter, I don't pretend to know what the implications are for what we would characterize as new family structures, right?
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want to insert the government expressing an opinion or limiting your rights to form a family any way you want. I happen to have known and to know, families that you and I would not necessarily characterize as traditional, right? Mm-hmm. That are, by anyone's standards, massively successful. And so that's terrific all day long. What I've got a problem with is suggesting that parental rights need to be undermined because in some sense we need to collectivize the prescription for how to raise children. And and we need to be clear, that's what these people are talking about. They're not merely saying, you need to loosen parents' rights because we have figured out that parents are doing bad things to kids. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is we want to insert our opinions through the vehicle of the state in order to replace parental direction on how to raise children. That's in effect what they're saying.
That is exactly and precisely what they're saying. They view children as a form of private property under capitalism, and they don't believe any private property should exist, from owning a home to land to a business to like a rental to individual liberties to intellectual property. But parental rights is one of the most disturbing things to me that they define as as private property, and they don't believe that that there should be, Sophie Lewis, the woman who said F parental rights. I have her on tape talking about how children should have multiple sets of parents and the whole it takes a village to raise children. They literally do mean that. And so I guess where I want to kind of bring this back and make it a little bit more like hinged into reality is I feel that the attacks on you and Chase around the issue of trans, and I want to get you to like tell us clearly what your guys' position on this. I think the attacks have been, quite frankly, a little bit unfair, because what I
You
hear
think?
just a touch hyperbolic and unfair. And because what I think is that we need to keep the government, the state, out of this at all costs, because I remember a couple of years ago during COVID when it was considered child abuse to not force your child to wear a mask for 8 hours a day. It was considered child abuse to not vaccinate your child with this new unproven vaccine. And how did that work out for us now? And so I am very reticent to come in and have the state dictate and say, this is child abuse, you can't do it. Does that mean I like transition surgery for minors? Absolutely not. I don't think it should be happening. Does that mean I want people, like kids, to be transed in school? Absolutely not. And I don't think you do either. So can you talk to us a little bit about what your and Chase's actual position on this, without any of the hyperbole or nonsense that you guys
just tell you the truth?
Yes, tell the truth, please.
Well, first of all, Chase and I, for a long time, have totally, well, as far as I know, and since the earth cooled, Chase and I have agreed that for permanent surgery, the types of surgery that create permanent changes, and the types of surgeries that are in some sense, and I need to be careful about how we use terms, right? But surgeries that are in some sense, according to medical indications, discretionary, right? We're not talking about someone who, needs an orthopedic surgery because of a broken leg, right? We're talking about surgeries, sexual identification surgeries that are in some sense discretionary. What I mean is that don't have a medical indication, right? Mm-hmm. We believe that children, whoever is having these surgeries, needs to be able to fully participate in these decisions, and that these decisions are complex. And because they are so complex, an age of consent should be reached. And just imagine, as we all have imagined, right? Just imagine if you were in this situation, how complicated these decisions are. Can I trust my doctor, right? Is my doctor an idiot? Should I get a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion? What are my alternatives? What are the long-term implications? What do the data say? What have other individuals' experiences been? Are there alternative surgeries? Are there alternative medical treatments? Are there alternative social, psychological? What are the other alternatives that are available to me? These are complex decisions that I would say would be difficult for, a 60-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 30-year-old. But to ask a 16-year-old to make this decision and to weigh all those things, I think is absolutely overwhelming. And for something this important, this life-changing, life-altering, Chase and I believe that an age of consent should be reached. Now, there's another pool of questions, right, that are not surgical. What do you do about medical treatments that include puberty blockers, for example, is the big flashpoint among some that are having a battle in the culture. And Chase believes, and therefore our team believes, that this is an area that is rapidly evolving technologically, that this is something that people honestly disagree regarding the implications, regarding the long-term outcomes, regarding what the indications are and what the indications should be. It is true that the psychological and psychiatric and medical communities are split on these issues, and therefore it can only be characterized as a gray area. Now, having said that, if it's a gray area, do you really want to invite the government in to decide what it is you can or cannot do? And Chase's position is that we're not ready to invite the government in with a heavy hand. And believe me, as a police officer for 11 and a half years, I can tell you that criminalizing something, right, policing something, using the government to decide what you can or cannot do, that is a crude and blunt instrument. And so the team's position is that we should not be inviting the government in to settle this issue for everybody, but that we need to rely on parents working hard with their doctors to figure out what is the right thing to do. And by the way, I have not been in this situation, but I know folks who are and who have been. These are excruciating challenges. They are very difficult. They are painful. They are a challenge for each parent and each child who is involved with this. These families work very hard at trying to figure out what is the right thing to do. And when I look at these situations, the idea of the government acting like it is smarter than you are, that's a little discomforting. Now, I will admit, as some of your viewers will be quick to point out, probably not too many of them, I personally have a slightly different view on this than Chase does. And so I want to make this as a matter of full disclosure. But as I have described, that's what our team's position is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think that actually makes a great point, because my position on this is that I certainly don't believe there should be gender transition surgery before someone is the age of 18. I would be very, very reticent at best to put a child on any medication. And by the way, that's not just puberty blockers. I don't want them on ADHD medication. I don't want them on any sort of medication before they're 18. But it also gets into the area for me where if I want to protect parental rights at all costs, and I think that that is paramount to upholding the nuclear family, which is upholding our society, fundamentally that means there are going to be people that have a different opinion than I do. And they're going to be people that have different experiences than I do. And they're going to have different circumstances than I do. And the fact of the matter is I think that, and maybe this is a little bit of a blunt way of putting it, but there are a lot of ways that parents make tough decisions for their kids that sometimes don't work out in the way that we hope that they would. And I don't think that we can't call the state in and say child abuse, child abuse, child abuse every single time a parent makes a different decision than we make, because they're trying to do the best they can. And I do believe that. I think most parents are trying to do the best they can with the information that they have. And I think it's incumbent upon people who want to fight back against the transition of children to be doing it more on the social level, in terms of, really making sure the information is out there, making sure you're countering all of this information that's coming from the far left into the schools, making sure that people are aware that there are different perspectives on this. Because I think that that's one of the things that's been a challenge, that the left is so far ahead of everyone else that there just hasn't been contradictory information. I want to make it against like the medical ethics board in the American Medical Association to be doing gender transition surgery against minors. I think that's a much better way to do it than going through the federal government and having the government regulate these things, because then you're going through the professional body governing the organization. How would you feel about some of those ideas?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, especially, by the way, your whole description of the issue I thought was eloquent and on point. I wholeheartedly agree with your attitude toward the AMA. I think that the AMA has been, to a certain extent, cowed by the left and by the woke movement. And that's not to say that I'm not even suggesting that the woke movement has always been incorrect. I'm just suggesting that the AMA, I believe, has been too politicized, has been cowed against asserting what their membership's true feelings are regarding the practice on behalf of some of their members. And I think that most of their members have feelings that do not agree with where the AMA itself has been going. Having talked to a number of doctors in this area, I think there is a growing recognition of that phenomenon. So I do think that we need to not only bring pressure, right, but to allow membership organizations and their members to more freely express themselves without fearing backlash from a woke or a leftward leaning and motivated media. I think that's a real problem, a real problematic force in our society. And the other thing I really like the way you put that, Carlin, because it's my strong feeling as a libertarian that we need to recognize, of course, that criminalization especially, but all public policy is downstream of culture. And for those of us who have strong feelings about culture, that we need to work hard within our culture to win hearts and minds and ideas and get people to agree with us if, we feel strongly and, we believe that we should be changing people's minds. It's up to us to do that. And sometimes that's hard work, right?
Yeah.
But I don't believe that we should be using government as a tool to do that, especially criminalization to do that. So to the extent to which we should be engaged in these battles, I think we need to be super careful about using the government to do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And on the flip side of that, as much as I spend most of my time thinking about what the left is doing and how they're trying to destroy everything, I also have looked at, again, the attacks that have come at you and Chase over this. And I look at the people who are, screaming child abuse and screaming groomer because you guys haven't said exactly the words that they want you to say at any given time. And I think about a parent in that position, and a parent has this kid that's come, and I know many parents, I know parents who have had the schools socially transition their children without their knowledge, that the parents then found out months later when the kids start coming home and they're wearing different clothes and they're all of a sudden really depressed, and the parents are like, what is going on? You were fine 3 weeks ago, and now and you find out they're in this club in school where they're being told that they're queer and trans and all these things, and it's confusing the kids. So I know many parents this has happened to, and they when confronted with that, that's a really difficult thing to have your teenage child come home, say, I'm trans and this is what I want to do and all these things. And I would imagine that if they immediately had someone in their face yelling child abuser, groomer, groomer, that's actually not going to help the situation. That's actually just going to push them towards people who are being kind to them and being understanding and saying, oh, let's help your kid. And those are often going to be leftists that want to give the kid puberty blockers when they may or may not need it. So I don't think that tactic is productive either. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's a political movement rather than a movement that really look, I want to take them at face value, right? I want to take them at their best. So I don't mean that they're being disingenuous, but I get the impression that their motivation is more of a political one than one that is rooted in having worked with kids and having worked with families. And to the extent to which that's an unfair characterization of some folks out there, I'm sorry about that. But you have been swept up in a group that wants to politicize this an inch too far, in my own view. And I say that as someone who comes from the right? I am a little bit right of Chase, including on some of these issues. But the folks that have gone after Chase on this particular set of issues have absolutely mischaracterized his motivations and have mischaracterized his thoughtfulness on this. This is a topic area where Chase and I see eye to eye 98 times out of 100. And on the other 2%, we can have full and frank discussions. And for this reason, I profoundly resent folks who believe that, they're adding value to this debate, who mischaracterize folks' motivations, whether they're Chase's or mine or yours or anybody else's.
Yeah, I've been really disgusted at the attacks that I've seen against Chase. And again, I haven't always been the biggest fan of Chase. I definitely disagree with Chase on some issues, but to see him called a groomer and a pedophile and all of these things that are just objectively not true. I mean,
Well,
it's
stupid.
been
They're
disgusting.
stupid. Of
It
course,
really
they're
has.
objectively
It's been gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
When I hear it, I got to
ahead.
jump in. Of
Oh,
course, they're
please.
stupid and untrue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they are bald-faced, motivated by things outside of what you would consider truthfulness.
It is really the most disgusting part of politics, and quite frankly, why I don't play in libertarian politics that much. It's like, what did Kissinger say? The stakes are so vicious, or the attacks are so vicious because the stakes are so small, or something like that. Sometimes with libertarian politics, but I do think that you guys have a really big platform to be advancing some strong pro-liberty messaging. And one of the things that I was most excited to see in Chase's platform is the complete defunding of the Department of Education, which is like as soon as I saw that, I was like, sold. I need see no more. Can you tell me about your and his position on the public schools and education in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right. The Department of Education is a parasite that's got to go. This whole idea of the federal government taxing you so that they can give the money back to you, but with strings attached, that is not just bad economics. That is personally insulting. That is telling me, let me have your money, Mike, because you can't be trusted with it. I'm going to give it back to you, but I'm going to tell you how to spend it. That is unethically vulgar on some level. Look, I do believe that in the long run, public schools are going to go by the wayside. And the reason I believe this is because in a fully competitive environment, which is the direction that we're moving, all too damn slow, but the direction that we're moving in is one of competition, and for a variety of reasons. I believe in the long run, you will find that public schools have a very difficult time competing. And one of the reasons for that is not just the specific issues that you flagged today. Yes, in many cases, because of the specific issues that you flagged, but because there are any number of issues that they are all forced to align with, right? No matter what the issue, all the public schools have to fall in line. Well, this is not a way to run a business, right? You need to be responsive to your local clientele. One of the reasons we want the Department of Education sunset is because school boards need the right to make decisions on their own without coercion, I would argue, even from the state, much less the federal government. And we all recognize that public school boards left to their own druthers frequently make stupid decisions on their own, right? But having said that, we do believe that all stupid decisions need to be kept at the local level. At least allow these decisions to be made as closely in concert with parents, and to your point, parental rights, as possible. I do believe that as we allow private sector schools, voluntary schools, to compete on a level footing, you will see that increasingly parents choose voluntary private sector schools because they have greater control, not just because the schools perform better, parenthetically, which they do, but I believe that the big reason you'll see migration out of public schools is because parents have greater control.
Yeah. I also think that we need to find ways to make homeschooling easier for parents, because I talk to parents all the time that would love to be able to homeschool their kids, but they've kind of psyched themselves out and they think they can't do it. They don't know that like different things like educational pods exist, like they can team up with other parents in their community. Some parents either even get all their kids together and they hire a tutor using the school choice money that they get from the state. So they very literally control everything. Do you have any thoughts about how to make homeschooling easier to parents?
Absolutely. First of all, the first thing you got to know is that, yes, you can do it. It seems, sounds, looks daunting. And to be fair, it is a tremendous amount of work. There's nothing I can say to suggest, it's going to be all roses and completely trivial. But it's healthy for the kids. The kids typically outperform. It's a wonderful way to bond. And you do find in your own community, the mom next door happens to be really good at trigonometry, and the dad on the other side happens to be a whiz at American history. You find, to your point, ways to combine with other homeschooling families in your area, in your town. And there's a lot more of them than you think, and a hell of a lot more of them than there were a dozen years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So I know many homeschool families that are just over the moon. They got into it real hesitantly and found out, wow, there is a lot of support, mostly in the community from other families, but also professional resources. To your point, you can hire a tutor. There are great resources online. But one of the things that I want to leave people with the impression of is that it's really a matter of attitude. You can do it, but you have to jump in, you have to commit, and let your community work with you as you work with them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that. Now we have about 9 minutes left, and you've humored me for 50 minutes to talk about the things I want to talk about. So I want to give you 10 minutes at the end. What issues are most important to you right now, and what do you want the voters to know?
Parental rights.
Yeah. We did it. Mission accomplished.
Look, I grew up as a banker and a professional economist, so I can't escape the fact that I do believe that a lot of folks in the United States continue to put the economy at the top of their list regarding the issues on which they're going to vote. And I think it needs to be said. If you're thinking about a Republican or a Democrat, you got to give the Libertarian Party a look, because we actually stand up for your values. Stop wasting your vote. If you hate inflation, don't vote for some schmuck who just says, oh, inflation is naughty. I wish we had less. That's a load of crap. You should vote for someone who actually knows how to end inflation, to replace the system that we have now, and not allow the federal government to just willy-nilly print all the money that it wants. We need to end that system. I don't think, Carlin, most Americans realize that the way that monetary policy is set in the United States, interest rates, the amount of inflation, this is how it works. Every 6 weeks, we lock up in a room a dozen smart people, and we ask them basically what mood they're in regarding the economy. Now, I think that most Americans hearing my voice would say, that must be a metaphor. That's an analogy, right? That's not actual. That's not literally. No. That's literally how it works. The most important pricing mechanism in the world, right? Inflation and interest rates on the US dollar are set by allowing government employees. Yeah, I think 2% is better than 1.5% this week. Mm-hmm. That's literally how it's done. And we know from experience that the system stinks. And I'm not trying to say that these people are unpatriotic. What I am trying to say is we've had a 100-year experiment to find out that it doesn't work. We need to end the regime of out-of-control inflation. We need to stop the government from spending money willy-nilly. We need to stop the government from sending our dollars abroad in the form of foreign aid. We need to stop our government from using our money to project military power around the world for no damn good reason. It doesn't make us safer. It doesn't make us more loved. It doesn't make us wealthier. It doesn't increase our incomes. It costs us a boatload of money, makes us less safe. Oh, and by the way, I don't think most Americans want to hear this, but I think that everyone should. Your tax dollars were used in Iran and Afghanistan to end the lives of over 1 million fellow human beings. That's not an analogy or a metaphor or a parable. That shit actually happened with your money. Yeah. This is why I say stop wasting your vote. Vote your values. And I do believe that most Americans' values better align with those of the Libertarian Party than they do with the Democratic or Republican Party.
I completely agree with you. I think that most people are sick of both the Democrats and Republicans. I think they're two sides of the same coin. And for me, I think there's only one party that actually makes sense on most issues and wants to leave things up to like normal people rather than just fleecing us for more and more taxes, to fund more and more foreign wars, to spend more and more money on public education and nonsense, and nothing is actually getting done or accomplished. Society's not getting better. It's getting harder for normal people every day. And I think the only way that we have out of this is to start rolling back the role that the state plays in our lives, and to start seeing that, normal people have the ability to do for themselves. We need to get the government out of things.
That's exactly right. If you want to be safer and wealthier and freer, you're going to have to start voting for the change that you want. And I believe that does not any longer mean voting for a Republican or voting for a Democrat. With all due respect to Republicans and Democrats, I grew up a Republican. I believed in free markets and free trade and a deregulated environment. And the party and I went in two very different directions. That's a weird thing. And I got to add, Carlin, most of my family are Democrats. They joined that party thinking this is a group that'll stand up for our civil liberties, stand up for your First Amendment rights. Wow, that party and my family went in two different directions. And so I think that you got to vote your values.
Yeah, that was exactly my experience. I grew up in Vermont. I was a Democrat for 20 years. And, people think like in the Libertarian Party that I was like a MAGA Republican. No, I wasn't. I was a Democrat for a long time before I came into the Libertarian Party. I had a little dalliance with Trump in 2020 because the Libertarians hadn't made the case to me yet, to be honest, about why I should vote for them. No one had talked to me. And then once they did, I was like, okay, this is actually where I belong ultimately.
I understand. And the Donald does have some natural anti-establishment leanings that can be very attractive. As it turns out, he's a bit of a nutcase, but his anti-establishment instincts are very attractive. So good for you for finding your way to the Libertarian Party. VoteChaseOliver.com.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for spending some time with us. I really do appreciate it. I want to encourage everyone to check them out. You can find the links in the description below. And maybe can we have you back sometime in the next couple months? You can update us on some other things. Would that be okay? Oh no, he's frozen. Oh no, maybe I'm frozen. Maybe he's frozen. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. Well, regardless of who is frozen, I'm not quite sure who it is, if it's him or me. But guys, I do hope you enjoyed the chat. Thank you all for he's frozen. So we'll just say goodbye to Mike. We appreciate him. Thank you guys for coming out and joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll be sending updates from Detroit, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.